You're watching The Channe Show, hosted by yours truly, Kavita Channe. Today we're joined by two single mamas who are here to share their experience quarantining as a single parent during this pandemic and more. Thank you guys so much for joining us on The Channe Show today. I'm so excited to have my single mamas with me.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Yes, Laura and Gillian, you guys are awesome. You both live in Fort Lauderdale, and it's actually an interesting story. I'm a single mother too, but you guys, after this pandemic was happening, were in desperate need of someone to help as a caregiver because you both are working from home. So you went and flew Gillian's mom from Namibia, and you both are basically sharing her as your nanny right now during this whole quarantine period. Is that correct, Gillian?
Yes, that is right. Luckily, we actually had her scheduled coming before because I think about 2 weeks later, everything really got shut down. I think it was like really good timing. We had it planned months before, but she flew right before it got really badly. So it's been really good.
Oh my gosh, great timing. And how did this come about? I mean, you said you planned this before the pandemic. So is she happy she's here, or does she feel like it's a little more exposure than Namibia?
Well, we planned the trip just, and I'll have Laura elaborate, but when we knew Laura was having Harry, we had chatted about it because my mom came when I had Elliot for 3 months when I went back to work, because it was just really helpful to have someone there that knew what they were doing. Really, we should say thank you to Harry, otherwise she would not be here helping. So she was coming anyways to help with Harry, and it's just worked out that she can help both of us as we're trying to work and still be there for our kids.
So both of you have boys. Laura, you just had your baby 4 months ago. He's 4
Yeah.
Harry. And Jillian, how old is your baby?
He's 2 years and 8 months. He'll be 3 in July.
Wow. So this is great timing, and you wouldn't have had your mom if it wasn't for Laura. So Laura, what is it like having her mom there to help?
Oh, I feel like she was sent on the wings of an angel. I mean, I knew that Rosie was going to be here predominantly to visit Gillian. She comes once or twice a year anyway, but she had offered to help me when I came back to work here and there, and the timing just could not have been better. She is just such a natural with children. She was very active in raising her granddaughter. Gillian's sister, had her help her with her first child, and then she helped Gillian when Elliot came along. Sadly, my mum passed away 3 years ago. There's nothing I'd like more than for her to be here to help me, but this is definitely the next best thing. It's somebody's mother and somebody who's been around children, and I just don't think you can ask for more than that. She's great.
Laura, you have a unique story to Harry coming about, so why don't you share that?
So Harry was conceived with the help of the California Cryobank. I chose to have a baby last year, having been with my ex for 7 years. We were engaged, and it's a long, boring story, but we broke up. And I was, of an age where I had to make a call on it, and I wanted to be a mother, and I didn't want to do it with the wrong person, and there weren't any good contenders around. So I was very fortunate that some friends of mine had recently conceived with a sperm donor, so they were able to guide me through the process. And it was honestly a lot less complicated, a lot less expensive than I had realized. And within 3 or 4 months, I was expecting Harry. So yeah, he arrived 9 months later in December, and the whole thing took about a year. It was very quick and relatively painless.
That's amazing. And Gillian, you guys have been friends for a while, so you were there through this whole process, and you were there also to show her, the difficulties and the great things about being a single mom, right?
Yes, but as a mother, you only want to share as much in the beginning. You do tell the awful things, and I think everyone has a different experience. What's hard for me, breastfeeding was the most challenging thing. I would watch YouTube videos. I had 4 different lactation specialists, and I think Laura's was a little bit easier, even though we all have certain bumps. So I think it's just having mothers that will tell you the gritty truth about what things are like and not sugarcoating. So, but she's been a natural, and she's a little researcher about everything. I'm oh, I forgot about that. I think my memory blocked that out.
That's so funny. And now, Gillian, you have a different situation because you have Elliot's father around.
Yeah.
Ryan is a co-parent with you.
I have someone to be a backup. If I'm like really in a jam, I can say, hey, I know it's my turn, because him and I have 50-50. So, and he's very hands-on dad, which is great. So we typically have, like, he has a Monday, Tuesday, I have a Wednesday, Thursday, and every other weekend. But we've just essentially split our days in half. So he can work half day, I can work half day. So we essentially, have that, where I think it is more challenging when you're on your own. And even though I think Laura has a great support system, it's hard to have a support system during a quarantine to, assist. So that's why I'm also happy my mom is here, because it would be extremely challenging, like, work wise, emotionally, to be, by yourself. And of course, Laura's sister's here as well.
The reason I moved back to Fort Lauderdale to have this baby is because I'm fortunate to be blessed with some really good friends. We have some mutual friends, Kavita, and Wanda's been very present. And I think what this quarantine has reminded me is how lucky I am to have those friends, because I don't have them to call upon anymore for safety reasons. Gillian and I have made the call to just isolate, she and I living separately, and then her mum going between, because we just have to do that. But beyond that, we're trying to limit exposure. So I'm no longer able to say, to our other friends, can you come over and just watch the baby while I get ready for this, or watch the baby while I do something else? I really have had to figure it out. And I think it's been a blessing and a curse, because early on, there were lots of times that I would call a friend for help because I just didn't know how to handle a tiny baby. And I was kind of the last of our crew to have a child. And there have been times, a bit like some of the movies, like Three Men and a Baby, where you just have to figure it out because no one's going to help you and no one's going to do it for you. So I definitely feel that I've come on in the last 4 weeks as a mother so much compared to what I learned in the first 3 months, because I haven't had a choice. I have had to muscle through on my own, and it's probably brought me and the baby closer together. And ultimately, I'm going to come out of this a lot more confident as a mum.
Absolutely. I love the silver lining. Let's talk about social distancing right now as a mom and how you guys are dealing with that.
I think that's been my biggest challenge, honestly. I'm a sociable person. And, Gillian mentioned that typically her mum spends the weekends with her, and I'm trying to be responsible and not expose Harry to anyone else. So I do spend, 48 plus hours, just he and I, and our only pastime other than being in our condo is to go for walks. And we all know that walks are getting a bit unpleasant in Fort Lauderdale because it's flipping 90 degrees out there all of a sudden. So for me, the true, I don't want to say loneliness because everyone's only a phone call away, but I have felt isolated at times, and I've really had to check myself not to feel sorry for myself and not to be depressed, and just accept that this is a short-term challenge, and I will appreciate my friends and the social options that I have on the other side of this even more than I did before, because 48 plus hours alone with a young baby, it can be challenging because, they don't offer you any real conversation. They take from you, and I'm happy to give, but it is nice to have somebody else around to break the day up. So that's just been my biggest challenge with the social distancing, is doing it responsibly and really not seeing anyone other than Gillian and her mum. I've mentioned to you earlier that people feel it's their place to educate me that I shouldn't really have my child out and about. And, I understand I shouldn't take my baby into public, but I don't see the harm in taking a walk. But even that has become a bit challenging because, people are disapproving. They think the babies should be kept indoors. Perhaps they're right, but there's only so much time you can spend inside unless you live in a 3,000 plus square foot mansion with a pool. I don't, unfortunately. So I do want to get some fresh air, and I'd like to be able to do that in peace. But I think that people here have an opinion, and I respect that. It just doesn't make my life very easy.
Jillian, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with the social distancing. Is funny when you just told that story, Laura. I told another friend, it was about 2 weeks ago, it was Easter, and of course I know you can't do Easter hunt outside. We're raised Catholic. I don't really practice, but my mother was like insisting I need to do an Easter egg hunt. So before the hunt, I was like, all right, I'll take him on a walk. I took him on a walk in his wagon, and I was walking actually by Brian's apartment, and then there was this lady that was staring at me. and he was wearing a fedora. I was wearing my fedora. We were playing Michael Jackson because he's obsessed with Smooth Criminal. And she was taking pictures and like pointing at me. And I was like, I felt very invaded. And I told my one friend, I was like, I felt like she was judging me, or maybe she thought Elliot's hat was really cute. But I'm like, the way she looked at me, I didn't feel that it was like approving look. And, I don't have a mask on his face, but we're walking outside. We're not, we're many feet away from other people. So I think everyone has their opinion, but when you have a small child, they still need to get outside. Like they need physical activity. So for me, that's been the hardest part because we can't do our swim lessons anymore. You can't go to the park. You can't have play dates. So it's just, they don't see their friends, and he's really close to Brian's parents as well. So he, fortunately he gets to see his Oma, but he doesn't get to see grandma and grandpa, so we FaceTime, and, there are times that his grandmother gets really sad and upset. And so she can't see him, and he's used to seeing them at least twice a week. So like that's been very hard and challenging. But I mean, I know there are worse things, but it's just trying to explain why we're washing our hands all the time, trying to explain why you can't give people your rocket. We saw your dog walker yesterday. What's her name? Inez. And
Yeah.
he ran up to Inez and said, "Hold my rocket." And she grabbed it. And then I was like, "I'm so sorry. He doesn't understand." And she's like, "That's okay. He's cute." So she just wiped off the rocket. And then, I was like, if it was anyone else, because most people look at you like there's something wrong with you. And I'm like, I just can't explain that he doesn't understand that he can't get close to people. So
how did you explain it to your toddler in, the best way?
Yeah. Just if you ask him COVID-19, he says it's dangerous and we have to wash our hands. So that's all he knows. It's just like when you ask him, why can't you see grandma and grandpa? He says we have to keep them safe. So I don't think he understands like what it can do, but it's dangerous, and, we have to keep them safe. So that's why you can't see them. So he's not even 3, so he doesn't really get it.
I mean, in a way, Laura, you have an advantage because a baby 4 months does not care to go out except for their daily 5 minutes of vitamin D that the pediatricians like to have us give our babies. And beyond that, they just want to be around mom, and they're easily occupied. So what are you guys doing? Just, quickly let us know what you're doing to occupy your children indoors to make it somewhat enjoyable for them.
Well, I've taken advantage of this time to bust out some hurdles that I was quite nervous about. So, for instance, around 4 or 5 months, you're not meant to swaddle them anymore because, when they roll, you can't swaddle them. Well, I tackled it at 3 months because I thought I'm going to have to do this eventually. Yes, I'm working full time, but I can work in my pajamas. So if I don't get a good night's sleep, it's not the end of the world. So I've just taken advantage of the extra time and tried to move ahead early with some of the things that you do with babies, maybe when they're 4 and 5 months old. I've done them a bit prematurely, and they've been successful because I've been less stressed. There's been less pressure for me to get a good night's sleep, like I said, because, work has eased off a little bit. So just trying to make the best of the situation. And that's it, really. You're right. Beyond that, baby, I am lucky because small babies, yes, you have to play with them, but they don't notice if it's the same toy every time. I'm the one who's bored, not him. He's just happy to sit and talk at me all day. Or recently, another girl who recently moved to Fort Lauderdale, and she just had a baby amidst all of this pandemic. The poor girl, she is married, so she's got the support of her husband. But yeah, it was rewarding to be able to give her the tips that I used, and got Harry sleeping through the night a bit earlier than some managed to. And I think that would be my biggest takeaway, is that anyone with a child in this climate, we need to stick together. We need to support each other from a distance, because it's a unique experience. I feel like there are 2 pandemics going on here, at least 2, but 2 of them are one with people without children, and their biggest challenge is how bored they are. And, those of us with children are going through a completely different experience. There's a lot of stress. So yes, I feel very fortunate to have the support and help from my friends. And I feel like I've been able to give some tips and ideas to other new mothers.
That's actually true. I feel like I am somewhat sane because I do have my children, where if I was, even though I'm stressed, but I'm very busy. Whereas if I didn't have children, I would be going nuts, I think.
Yeah.
So we are blessed in that instance. Gillian, so what about you? in terms of activities? What's like something fun that like a tip
Yeah.
for single parents out there?
Elliot likes baking because he likes mixing stuff. So we make chocolate chip cookies. And even before the pandemic, he liked baking. And I like to make him like things with almond flour and like low sugar options just because I think the store bought things has too much sugar. So we bake. I wouldn't say we bake once a week. We bake like every other week we'll bake. He loves dancing. So I do a lot of like the YouTube videos, especially because he's into Michael Jackson. So even if it's like 15, 20 minutes, and I think most moms with toddlers, like it's just like redirecting. So when you're having a challenging time and they're going through something, it's doing activity. Like, and for him, it's like physical activity. It helps, not all the time, but I'd say like 90% of the time. So like dancing, and I just discovered that last week, putting on like a YouTube dancing. He loves that. So the baking, the dancing activity, he's always loved Play-Doh. So like Play-Doh. And then recently I made the mistake of giving him slime, and that can keep him busy for like an hour, and there's slime everywhere. So
I regret that one.
yes, but it does work. It keeps him like very entertained. So yeah, just because you can't really do much outside. So the Play-Doh, the slime, the dancing, and Brian does a lot of yoga with him. So he's pretty good at downward dog. So yeah, so just like some physical activity that you can do inside that works.
That is so great. Those are great tips. Now, a lot of moms that I speak to have been saying, oh my gosh, am I an alcoholic? Like 3 o'clock, I want a glass of wine. And so what do you guys take on that?
Restrict myself to 6 p.m. But sometimes I'll have a glass of red at more like 5:30. But there's definitely been more pumping and dumping going on in the last month than ever before. Like before this, if I ever had to pump and dump, it'd be like, oh my goodness, my liquid gold. Now I'm like, screw it, I'm having another glass of wine. There goes milk. We've got plenty.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely a nightly glass of red.
What about you, Jillian?
I might not do nightly because I'm trying to like, one of the other things you asked what was challenging is just getting a workout in, which keeps you like sane. But I make sure that I do have wine for when I need it, because it's just strange times where sometimes you need to unwind, and a glass of wine, or even last night I had a glass of vodka and peach and it was delicious. So, just less judgment and less comparing ourselves to other people, because we've never experienced this in our lifetime. So it's just, if you have to have a glass of wine or vodka, do it, but make sure you're working out. And for me, meditation has helped as well. Just knowing that, Laura said a good point, like this will pass too. So if you keep remembering, like whatever, especially when you have kids and there's that moment where they go crazy or they're inconsolable, just knowing, I break it up in 15 minutes. I'm like, okay, he'll be better in 15 minutes. Sometimes it's like 45 minutes and then he is better, but it's just be easy on yourself, and it is stressful, and we're doing the best we can.
My last topic is dating. Just dating in general during quarantining. Obviously you can't see the person. So the fears that moms have out there is, I keep my child safe and quarantine and then run the risk of like losing this relationship because the guy gets uninterested, or I let the person quarantine with me, or I'm just doing Zoom calls with guys to date or whatever. What do you guys have to say on that?
For me, I call this, instead of a sabbatical, I'm having a man-batical. So, I was in a great relationship for 7 years, and not so great relationship for the last couple of months. And, that took up all of my 30s pretty much. So when I decided to have Harry, I took myself off the market, because if I'm going to pay a babysitter, it's not going to be to go on a first date that has slim chance of being successful in this going to be to spend time with friends and family, or some time for me. So my next dating experience will be someone that I just meet organically at the gym, or dropping Harry off at daycare if ever we're able to do that. But yeah, dating the modern way per apps and so on is off the cards for me currently.
All right, well, dating for you, Jillian?
I am dating someone, and he, quarantines with, his children. And then, of course, I quarantine with Elliot because we want to make sure that we keep, our families safe. So I would just, recommend definitely quarantining and less exposure on both ends. So.
Can you imagine all the people that are single and they just met somebody? They can't see them unless they don't have kids, or you know, people that they're worried about infecting, because otherwise they're putting people at risk. So right now it's almost like we're all getting put on a man batical, and the men are being put on a female batical too. I so appreciate you guys coming on the show. And do you guys have any other tips for being a single parent out there during this tough time?
I think mine would be just remembering, like Gillian said, this is going to be over in some shape eventually, and the very strict restrictions that we're under at the moment, and that I think we all should follow, will be gently eased off. They have to be as the year progresses. So in moments, and I've had them because I'm a brand new mum, that you feel you can't cope, you just have to cope and reach out to your friends for help and emotional support, and know that the sun will shine again.
You know, for me, it's been to just being present. So, you know, like I think Laura and I talk about it too. Sometimes you just feel guilty when you're not getting enough work done. And then when you're not spending time with your, you know, your kids, you feel like maybe you're not there, you feel guilt. And so for me, it's just like trying to remember to be present. So when I am playing with him, actually enjoying it, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour, and not being that hard and like judgmental about like, oh, I'm not getting enough work done, I'm not getting enough. So just being present for the things that you're doing the best that you can, and then just, you know, trying to stay healthy. It's nice to see people running and like biking outside. So just, I think that's like keeping your mental, you know, stamina by working out. For me, that's been really important. So I would recommend just continue working out and just being present and being good to yourself. So I've been doing a lot of face masks and like pores on my nose, even bleaching my teeth. So any like DIY things that you could do to make yourself feel good.
I love those tips. Those are amazing. And I agree with them so much. This is such a unique time that we're in, and you guys are killing it. You guys are doing awesome. So proud of you guys. And, you know, we're single moms, but we're also single parents, and we're also parents, and we're also people, and we're also humans. So we're all going through something similar in different ways. So I salute you, moms. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Kavita.
Make sure to stay tuned for our next episode and subscribe to my YouTube channel.